Positive guidance and discipline are teaching tools that can be used to help children develop social skills. Adults can sometimes be confused about what it means to use these tools.
Well, so the word discipline really comes from the term to teach, right? So we need to think about that everything we're doing related to guidance or to discipline is ideally teaching the child. And so what is it that we want the child to learn? Through our interactions with them, through our interventions with them, through our teaching, what do we want this child to walk away with? Both in terms of strategies and their developmental learnings, but also information about how people manage conflict and what relationships are like.
One interesting aspect about social skills is that many adults are put off by a child who hasn't learned how to behave in the expected way. A child with underdeveloped social skills is often identified as a problem child.
I mean, you just think of how ludicrous it would be if when we're teaching children how to print their name and they're printing it wrong, we say, I told you how many times to print your name. Now you go sit there in timeout and think about it. It would be crazy. But we think nothing of when a child has a lack of a social skill to be punitive or to be annoyed at them rather than doing what we do typically all day long, informally assess where children are at and support them in their growth and development in all these other domains. It is no different in my mind for social emotional development.
Our children did not come into our world knowing how to walk, talk, feed themselves, and so we need to apply the same patience and due diligence that we do when it came to those skills. When our little ones were learning how to walk, we got down, we opened our arms up, and we said, I am right here for you. Do we do the same thing when it comes to challenging behaviors? I'm going to take a risk and say, not always. The child who does not immediately respond to strategies is often sent to the office. His or her parents are called because things aren't working fast enough.
Part of the reason some adults may be judgmental about a child's behavior is that they may see the behavior as being a permanent part of the child's makeup, as something that isn't easily changed.
And the notion is that if a child or an adult, it's really all ages, believe that important abilities like intelligence or talent are fixed commodities. So you're either a smart child or maybe you're not a smart child, or you're a talented individual, a good musician, or you're not, or you're a good athlete or you're not. That's a fixed mindset when you believe those things are just kind of God-given and you really can't do anything to change it. A growth mindset, in comparison, is a belief that all those abilities can be strengthened and grown within a child if they're in the right kind of supportive environment. Children who have a growth mindset, which is where we emphasize the importance of hard work and persistence in developing these talents, are actually more likely to take on challenges than children that have fixed mindsets.
Having a growth mindset, a belief that change is not only possible, but with experience and guidance inevitable, is important for children and the adults who care for them. A belief in what each child can become is the foundation of all positive guidance strategies.
Instead of stopping misbehavior, we want to replace the misbehavior. Because if we stop it, well, what's the child going to do next? So instead of stopping misbehavior, we want to replace it with an incompatible alternative. So an incompatible alternative is something the child can't be doing at the same time as the misbehavior. If a child is tipping back on his chair instead of working on something that he's doing, I don't mention the tipping back on the chair. I say, honey, will you show me the picture that you're drawing? And I ask a question about the picture. Because instead of investing my energy focusing on what we don't want, I'm investing my energy into what I do want. And that is actually the definition of positive guidance. Positive guidance isn't about being nice, although we absolutely want to be calm, centered, in control of ourselves, kind and respectful at all times. Positive guidance means that we invest our energy into teaching the skills that we want to see in children. The second skill is giving children a choice, but it's not what most people think about in terms of choice. We want to state what needs to be done and then give two alternatives. And we need to teach this to parents who often walk out to the car without holding their children's hands. We need to go into the parking lot. We need to hold hands. Would you like to hold my left hand or my right hand? If we're in the classroom, it's cold outside. I'm from Chicago, it's always cold outside. We need to go outside, we need to put on your coat or your sweater. So the choice is limited. Often, if a child misbehaves, we say, couldn't you have made a better choice? But if the child could have made a better choice, they would have made a better choice. So modeling these choices is critical.
As you work with young children to develop social skills, try to stay focused on the positive, what you want the child to do, and not the challenging behavior.
So adults need to redirect children, help them figure out what to do instead so that they are moving children toward positive behaviors rather than simply away from negative behaviors. In child development, we talk a lot about logical consequences, and what we really mean is they're consequences that are connected to the behavior, and they're consequences that help the child learn to adapt new, better behaviors in problem situations or repeat positive behaviors. Unrelated consequences are usually penalties, and they tend to be ones that keep children at adherence. Keep children at that stage where all they're thinking about is rewards and punishments rather than helping children internalize the behaviors that would be more successful for them. So for example, if every time a child runs in the hallway, we don't let that child use the computer for an hour, using the computer and running the hallway have no relation to one another. A better consequence, a teaching consequence, would be to have the child come back and practice walking, which is an example of a logical consequence. So unrelated consequences have a major problem, and that is if we think about the phases that children go to in self-regulation, unrelated consequences tend to keep children at the most primitive stage. Logical consequences help children move to self-regulation.
Logical consequences, combined with a growth mindset and redirection strategies, are key ingredients to a positive guidance, discipline-based approach. An approach built around the concept of teaching children how to meet their needs in socially acceptable ways.
There's this difference between how teachers view the teaching of content and how they view the teaching of becoming a good citizen. And one of them you do with infinite patience and care, and the other you do with impatience and ridiculously high expectations. And it's like if you can't sit on the rug or stand in line or keep your hands to yourself or avoid knocking over a block structure, you're in trouble. If you can't say the alphabet or write your name, you get lots of chances to practice, and you get scaffolded, and you get to trace your letters first, and you get all the right things in how you figure out how to do something. And so changing this mindset that with young children, it's the responsibility of a teacher to teach kids those things with the same infinite patience that you have for academics.